good evening, everyone. I'm Rakhi Gautam from greytHR, the moderator of Parichay webinar series. Thank you so much for joining us today on this session. And I must say, this is the 107th episode of the Parichay webinar series. And as I always say, this is because of you all that we have been here, for so long doing these sessions, exchanging ideas and insights. It's lovely to host all of you again, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion today as well. Now, the topic that we will be discussing on today is something which is never out of discussion these days, I must say, the role of HR in an AI-first workplace. Now, this session will explore how HR leaders, like many of you, can navigate the rapidly evolving landscape of work where technology, especially artificial intelligence, is reshaping how organizations attract, develop, and empower talent. Now, we will also unpack both strategic as well as practical insights on harnessing human tech collaboration while keeping people at the center of transformation. This is human resources. We cannot do human resources without humans. So, of course, we are going to be exploring the right balance which is required in human tech, collaboration and the role of artificial intelligence and how HR leaders are, driving this force today. Now, before we get into the actual discussion and all those questions, I am going to quickly give you an overview of how this session will flow. Since most of you are aware, this is going to be divided in two parts. The first part will be the discussion with our experts, which will then be followed by a dedicated audience Q&A. So any questions that you have, you can start putting them on the Q&A option that you can see on the screen, and we will be taking them towards the end. Also, this session is currently being recorded, so if you miss out on anything, we have got you covered. We will be sharing the recording with all of you by next week, so you can always go back and watch it later. Now, I think we have the quorum with us to start the discussion. Quickly talking about, the context, right? So in today's rapidly changing workplace, we know that AI is no longer just a tool or just a tool or a software that you can implement, right? It is transforming business models, workforce experiences, and the very role of HR itself. In fact, according to an IBM Global AI Adoption Index 2024, over 50% of organizations have deployed AI in at least one business function, and HR is, in fact, emerging as a key area of strategic AI investment. Now, as this trend accelerates, HR, of course, must rethink its approaches to people strategy, culture, capability, and growth. And to help us unpack all of that, we are joined by two distinguished leaders today, Mr. Amit Avasthi, ACC-ICF SPHR founder, CoSolve Solutions, and Mr. Aravind Kumar S., Director HR Technology and Transformation at Biocon Biologics. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us today. For our audience, I'm just going to quickly take everybody through your profiles. Amit comes, is a global HR leader and founder of CoSolve Solutions with over 20 years of experience designing and scaling workforce strategies across 34 countries and 80,000 plus employees. He has led large-scale HR transformations at organizations such as HCL, Dr. Reddy's, driving AI-enabled hiring, skill-based workforce models, and global people operations. An ICF ACC certified coach, Amit is passionate about combining technology with human-centered design to build high-performing, future-ready organizations in an AI and hybrid world. So thank you so much, Amit, for joining us. We are really looking forward to the discussion today with you.
Thank you, Rakhi, for that introduction. And hello, everyone. Look forward to this discussion.
Thank you so much, Amit. Moving on, we have with us Aravind Kumar, Director HR Technology and Transformation at Biocon Biologics, who comes with 17 years of global experience driving HR digital and people analytics transformations. He has led large-scale HCM implementations and designed future-ready HR operating models that enable data-driven decision-making and deliver measurable business impact. Aravind is passionate about using technology to elevate workforce effectiveness and build agile, insight-led HR organizations. Thank you so much, Aravind, for joining us today.
Thank you, Rakhi. Looking forward to the discussion.
Likewise. Now that the introductions are done, the excitement is high. Let's dive into the questions. To set the context and to start with the foundation, I will start with you, Amit. We discussed and we know how AI is significantly reshaping workplaces, right, across functions. But from your perspective, how is specifically the HR's role evolving in an AI first economy, if we can say so, especially in terms of strategic influence, workforce planning, and organizational value creation?
Thanks for that question. So there are three aspects that you have asked me to cover. Let me just first unpack what HR's role has been till now, right? So we have seen HR as an execution layer, and most of the times the question comes why HR cannot be a strategic partner and can have a seat at table. And I think this is the opportunity. The reason I say so AI has brought a very distinct element into the whole people strategy, if I could say so. One of the things that is happening, and which I'm also seeing rapidly evolving in companies, is the way AI is entering into works and roles. And this kind of creates a unique opportunity for us to rethink how the entire work design can happen. Okay. And when I say work design, it's not just about creating a role where a person with AI skill is put in place. It's about three different things. One is use of AI agents, how AI agents, which can actually operate any of the manual work or anything that is repetitive in nature. Second is AI human collaboration, which is all about understanding how AI can be used along with humans. And of course, the third piece is rapidly evolve organizations design, the workplace itself, and the workforce design. So these are the three key elements. So HR is moving away from what we had as a traditional workforce planning into more like a capability architecture. And this means that organizations will be able to say what is the right capability required for execution of tasks. From an organization lens, it also means that organizations will be able to move away from the typical role based approach to more skill based or capability based approach. The third piece, which is about the overall impact at the organization level, it's about understanding how each of these roles can then be configured in a agile manner. And I call this term as agility. So it is strategic agility which will help organizations configure and reconfigure things in a way to deliver outcomes that are required for business. And I think that's where the maximum impact would be, if you really ask me. So from an HR lens, it's an absolute opportunity for us to rethink how the work can be done, B, how we see ourselves positioning the function itself. And that's the opportunity.
Very valid, and I'm sure this resonates loud and clear with everybody in the audience because, you started off by saying how HRs were never looked at, as a strategic function. It was mostly a transactional role where we just need to hire and that's about it. But now that we are sitting at the CXO table and having those conversations, driving and adding to the business objectives, it's very important that we evolve with that role as and you talked about how it's important that we are agile, how we build that function ourselves as well. And this is also very important how we now look at our roles. It's not just from a professional standpoint, but also as a personal, as somebody who's just passionate about human resources and people in general, how we like bring everybody together and have those conversations where everybody is just talking about AI. How do we still sustain that human intervention at the center of it is very important. So thank you so much for, highlighting that. Now, before we move on to the next question to Aravind, I just want to have one question that I want to ask the audience and to get their perspective as well, because we are on the topic of evolution, right? We would like to understand from the audience as well, where is it that they stand in terms of AI adoption? And I'm going to launch a poll for them right now. And here it is. Again, all our polls are never about right or wrong. This is only to get the audience perspective in terms of where they stand and how then we can, help them into positioning, the function, right? So the question is, in your organization, how advanced is HR's adoption of AI technologies? Mature and AI enabled, beginning to adopt, exploring pilots, or not yet started at all? Some 45% of you have participated. The rest of you, this is just a tap on the screen. Let's do that tapping here also. Please participate and help us understand your perspective so that in the next questions that are followed, we can also, sort of tailor it to your experiences. We're going to keep it for another 10 seconds, and then I will, share the result with all of you. Okay, I think we have some 75% participation. Let me just end the poll and share the result with all of you. So 40% is saying beginning to adopt, which is definitely a very encouraging number. 28% says exploring pilots. 25% not yet started, and 6% mature and AI enabled. So I think we have a mix of the audience today in terms of AI adoption. But we will, of course, be touching across all these points. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. And let me just come back to you, Aravind, now with this question, which is, we talked about the role and how it's, evolved, right? When we talk about human tech collaboration at work these days, what are the key elements that HR must consider, right? And how can HR ensure that AI is enhancing human experience and employee experience rather than replacing it? Because when we have so much conversations about AI, not just from a function, but also from a roles perspective, there are always a lot of apprehensions about what is going to happen to me now that AI is only going to do all of the work, right? So how do we balance this human tech intervention and ensure that we are providing the best experience by adding AI into it and not replacing ourselves in the process?
Yeah, thank you for that. Right. In fact, any conversation on AI, I think I start with the best disclaimer that I give is I think AI is probably one of the most abused terms that has been used in the recent past, right? And let's all understand there is no way that AI can exist without human intervention, right? That's not at all possible. So for me, the way it works is AI plus HR. It is not AI replacing HR, right? Before going into maybe I can take live example to say how can it enhance, right? But if you take a live example, in my opinion, right, AI is mostly used to enhance or replace your tasks, right? It is not used to replace any relationships. And when you do that, the whole process fails dramatically. A classic example you can take is a Swiggy, right? You order, you don't get food at all. You try, you talk to an agent, but there is literally nobody there. You just have bot responding to the same configurations rule again and again, and it royally fails. But for them, the whole concept was to eliminate human, whereas the whole relationship has gone out of a toss. Again, a different sort of example. All of us make UPI payments. That simple Amitabh Bachchan's voice booming saying, payment received, for somebody who's an illiterate, somebody who does not understand how to log into a phone or a UPI app, for the person to know that the payment has reached that person. Phenomenal way of bringing in AI, right? So in my opinion, there are so many ways that AI can enhance the process, right? And typically I call it run the business and change the business, right? Run the business is where you completely remove the transactional part of it, be it right from screening your resumes, your resume parsing, being able to bring in maybe chatbots for self-service, removing the entire transaction part of it, right? So it is not that AI is replacing HR. AI is just replacing the kind of work HR is doing, right? Going back to the point of what Amit said, uh, typically HRs have always been called as a support function. When somebody says you are part of a support function, I really take offense. And I know HR is not a support function, and we are, as strategic as possible, and with data based, we can help even the CEO or a CFO to make data-driven decisions, right? So we are there. So it is just that scope of work is shifting for HR, and I don't think AI can any day replace HR. That's my 2 cents on that.
No, definitely. Great sense. Honestly, I can see a lot of reactions and people resonating with that because, you started off by saying how, AI cannot replace relationships, right? And when we talk about human resources and the strategy as well, when it comes to human resources, is to bring people together, to have, to give the best experience possible. And when we talk about experiences, the relationships matter. We cannot be dependent on a bot to do everything. You also touched upon how the scope of work has evolved, right? Now the manual work which was being done by the HR professionals can be taken care of by AI technologies, and the HRs can focus on a lot more strategic initiatives. So I think this is a great take and a very encouraging take, to consider, because um, I can see from the reactions from everybody that this matters, right? And when we are called that, okay, HR is just as a support function, we can get people for you, and then you do the rest. It doesn't cut anymore. Let me just say it like that, right? So it's important that when we talk about AI and when we talk about the adoption of AI in HR functions, we as HR professionals, we as HR ambassadors should also talk about this loud and clear, that this is here to help you do things in a lot more efficient manner, maybe save a lot of time in the manual tasks that you would spend hours before, and focus more on strategic advices to the CXO. So thank you so much for this, and great response, Arvind, there. Now coming to you, Amit, we talked about the evolution of role and how AI intervention is there, but there's also data that suggests, and whenever we talk about evolution, of course we have to evolve with it, right? And as much as we would talk about degrees before, I think we talk about skills a lot more these days. Like, if you have a degree, that's great, but if you have like great say problem solving skills, analytical skills, that is something that can get you really far, right? So there's also data from Deloitte Global Human Capital Trends 2025 report that talks about that over 75% of executives are see skills as more important than roles in the future workplace. Now, from your experience, right, what specific new competencies should HR leaders prioritize, both for HR itself and also for the broader organization, to stay relevant and future ready in this AI adoptive world?
Great question, Raki, because I think this is one of the most important area we need to address, right? And just few years back, there was a time when people used to say data science is an important skill for HR. Now that role has moved to AI, because AI can handle all your data, can give you brilliant reports. So what really HR needs is first, of course, AI literacy, because that's the most important area where, and to me, it's a non-negotiable in these times, right? So we all need to be aware of not just how to use AI, but create better output using AI. That's one. Second thing, which is becoming very important, is product mindset, because what really happens today is that AI and HR are working in collaboration with each other in terms of, let's say, if I take a recruitment project, right? Companies are using experimenting with AI. They would change or tweak the process. Now that requires a product mindset, because you need to really think about the process as a product rather than the other way around, right? And that kind of calls for a very strong product orientation, because ultimately all processes will go. We will be managing like, we'll become like squads managing products, if I were to loosely compare it to Spotify, right? The third piece, which is going to be very important, is how we are uh, using some of these skills like prompt engineering. Learning agility is going to be very important in these times. So prompt engineering, for example, would mean that we are not just able to, and I've seen a difference between a average prompt, bad prompt, and a good prompt, and a great prompt, right? And I can see Arvind smiling. I don't know the audience reaction, but uh, there is a huge difference that a simple good prompt can give. And a great prompt would give that outcome very, very differently. So prompt engineering is again a non-negotiable. Learning agility, because I think today we are talking about generative AI. We don't even know 2 years down the line how AI would surface, right? And if we continue being agile, if we continue to keep learning new approaches to work, I think we'll continue to evolve. And the world now is all about evolution rather than just learning and deploying yourself. So that's the way I see it.
No, very true, and I think you brilliantly mentioned about AI literacy. Let me start off with that because as much as we now talk about how everybody out there is using AI, and when we say AI, something as basic as ChatGPT, right? We see a lot of high schoolers use ChatGPT for their homework and projects these days. But are we using it responsibly, responsibly, or are we using it ethically or not? There are a lot of, and I think there were a few cases in the past also that talked about how somebody from the organization put in some confidential data into chat gpt or gemini, and then it all went for a toss. So it's very important that we know how to use AI and how to use AI in the right manner, right? And that's great competency that you talked about. Another thing I think which I personally resonate with is learning agility. We know that this what matters, what some, like we are talking about AI these days, right? We don't know if a two years down the line which new intervention we'll be talking about. So nothing is constant, everything's constantly evolving, right? We can call it that. And it's important that we also evolve and learn along with it. We learn how to implement and practically apply those in our day-to-day work lives as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think great points there. I'll move on to Aravind now. We've talked about how, AI intervention, the kind of skills which are required these days. Now, when we talk about actually integration, the practical integration of AI into HR function, or, some processes that are there, many organizations, I think, which, Amit did touch upon briefly about, AI literacy, right? Many organizations still struggle with balancing AI adoption with cultural trust and ethical considerations, right? So how do you recommend as HR leaders that we implement AI responsibly while preserving our organizational culture and fostering trust, especially amongst employees, that what, we have a lot of your data also, but this data is safe, this data is being used ethically, there's no data leakages as such. So how as HR leaders we can handle that, and how we can also sort of educate our teams to follow the same trend.
So in marketing, there is always this concept called push or pull, right? And typically when it comes to any tool adoption or anything that you want to deploy, there is always a leadership decision taken, and something comes on board, and it is pushed down the entire organization, right? Whereas I think the way to run this to foster that level of trust and maintain the org, the sanctity of, if I can say, right, the culture, right, is to emphasize on this one point, saying, I call it WIFM, right? What's in it for me, right? When you especially speak to the leaders and sort of tell them, why are we bringing in AI and what are we exactly going to do for them, right? The moment you go back and say that, if I can give, let's say, 2 or 3 years of time of, to every one of your employee, or maybe, if I can give you, data driven decisions at the click of a button for you to make strategic decisions on a daily basis, right? So one, what is AI exactly going to do for us, right? So bringing in that level of transparency and having a proper statement of purpose around AI, and making it clear to the employee, saying that while we are adopting AI, it is just going to be a guiding force. It is not going to make any decisions for us, right? Typically when it comes to conversations like performance and layoffs and all of that, we have to let employees know that we are not going to let a bot take a decision on how you perform or who is going to lay off, right? So going back to the same point of what we spoke earlier, while we enhance the process, right, the strategic decisions still lie with a human, and you bring in that human touch, and when you bring in that level of trust, right, and The other factor that also we need to take care of is, especially in regions like Europe, these people are big on GDPR, right? So especially when you bring in AI, the kind of data or the kind of PAI that we expose to these tools, right? So bringing in that level of transparency, bringing in what exactly is AI going to do, and ensuring to let these people know that it is actually going to make their life better, and it is just not a tick in the box, right? And I think that's the best way to bring in that sort of trust. And most importantly, when AI takes a decision, I think going back to Amit's point of AI literacy, if the owner of that particular AI process is not able to explain why AI has taken that decision, right, then I think the whole process fails there, right? So I think having that transparency and trust around the whole process is how I see, this will still work with any new company or any new implementation.
Definitely,
And
definitely would do. And yes, Amit.
sorry, I just wanted to add a point to what Aravind mentioned, and he was talking about performance, right? So nudging, typically, if you look at the normal performance process, a lot of time is spent by HR in actually following up for compliance, right? And nudging is an important element of how AI can actually enhance that process and bring down the compliance load on HR. So using HR strategically at these points, and that's why I call it the flow of work integration of AI in HR. And that's the reason I also said that it is more going to create a product approach rather than a process approach.
Yes.
No.
And I think we have crossed that stage, like we've been speaking about the same point of not being a support function, right? Today, performance in my organization is not subjective anymore. I like you, you get a good rating. I don't like you, you don't get a good rating. Let's all accept this is how performance has always been, right? But we have completely moved away from that point. Today, the way it works is at an organization level, we exactly know what goal does the CEO or the organization needs to achieve, and that goal is cascaded to the lowest level, and all of them are objectively driven. So let's say a simple operator does not attain his count. Let's say I'm supposed to manufacture 100 units, right? The moment this person misses out on that count, it automatically rolls up to the entire CEO level, and it says that you are falling short of so many numbers, and that's the nudge that Amit was speaking about, right? To manage this, you have to produce extra items. So we have gone to that level now. So that's how I see. It's a great point, Amit. Thank you for bringing it up.
No, thanks.
I agree. I agree. Thank you so much for both your insights and how it's important that we just not. I think when Arvind started off, it's not just that we bring a tool that we saw is something that is required and we just push it to our employees that what, today we are going to use this tool, and there's no training whatsoever. You just have to get used to it. So it shouldn't be that. It's important that we know at each level, at each employee that has to use a particular tool, a particular AI, technology, they're aware of what's in it for them. Why are they doing it in the first place? How does this help, right? Because that, of course, brings in a lot of transparency and a lot of confidence amongst employees as well. Because what happens, I think this is a two-way street, right? There's, of course, technology that you are telling your employees that this is important, we are going to be using it. There's one thing that they think, okay, how is data being used? So if we can give that insight. Second is they might feel underconfident about using technology at all. Somebody who is not from an engineering background or a data background, they would feel like, okay, this isn't something that is for me, or I don't know if I'll be able to use it or not. So we have, if we provide those kind of insights to each employee, we do provide proper trainings to them. I think that would really help. And secondly, of course, both of your points about how there has to be constant, I think sort of results that we can show, the value that we can show to both employees as well as, the leadership as to how this is helping. Amit, you talked about the nudge, right? I think that is so very valid, and everybody would agree, regardless from which function they are from, that, all these reminders that we get, right? Previously, the HR or any SPOC of a particular department has to constantly follow up, send reminders, and be like, okay, please, just do this. Not that there's artificial intelligence to help you just set those reminders, give those nudges. It helps greatly, and I think that is something that is so easy to relate to as well, and that's a great point of how this is helping. So thank you so much to both of you for that.
Actually, tackled absenteeism. And late incoming in one of the BPO company, I wouldn't call it BPO now, it's a GCC now. So in
Right.
that company, using AI nudges. So imagine a nudge coming from your manager saying, "Hey, you are late," and
Mhm.
the kind of reaction the employee would have and the kind of relationship issues it creates versus a pop-up showing up on your screen saying, "Hey, you are late. Can we do something about it?" And that has really brought about a behavioral shift in those people.
Def
So
No,
that's something
definitely. And
I
you know,
think.
this just makes me so excited because this was literally the conversation that I was having with one of my friends, some 2 days back, where he mentioned sort of, I asked, have you like already marked your attendance or not? Like, yes, if I don't, I get nudges. So it's like a ritual now. I wake up and I mark my attendance. So I think that's the behavioral shift that we're talking about, and it's so great to see that these are the things that are actually helping, and it's not just something that we're just talking and discussing upon. So thank you so much for that. Okay, now great reaction from the audience as well. I think everybody agrees. Moving on to my next question to you, Amit, and for the audience, some of you are raising your hands. If we are coming to your questions very soon, so if you have any questions that you would like to ask, you can now start putting it in the Q&A option, and we'll be taking them up in another 10 minutes. Now, coming back to you, Amit, we talked about, how it's important that we integrate AI in the right way. There's proper training, there's proper, communication which is happening, there's transparency, there's that cultural shift that actually happens with it. Now, it's also about how we measure the success of it, right? So, as HR integrates AI tools from talent analytics to performance platforms, Arvind talked about performance management. How can HR leaders ensure that these technologies drive real growth through people and technology and not just efficiency? So efficiency, we do know that, this helps, manual effort is reduced, time is saved, all of that is there. But in terms of, those real growth or strategy that we can show at the leadership level, right? What are
Hmm.
some of the metrics that HR should focus upon in that case?
So just to give you some insight there, one of the leading studies last year pointed out that 85% of AI projects are actually failing. And the reason for that is they were all focused on efficiency. So, see, I think it's very easy to say, and Arvind made that point very early on, AI replacing human, or in that case, HR. But I think that's beyond the point. I think whenever organizations start with that end, they actually don't get the revenue impact or the business impact of it. Whereas if the business case is around how to augment business capability using AI, you also get a revenue impact and, of course, productivity enhancement, because then the focus is not about who the AI would replace, but how AI can impact a particular work stream or a process or subset of the organization. Because uh, reaching at an org level across, I think not many organizations have even tried doing that. So everybody is using a bite-sized approach to actually evaluating and implementing AI or deploying AI. But at the same time, it's very important as HR leaders to understand that even when we are building the business case, the case cannot be built on efficiency alone. Efficiency is a byproduct. And let's not use that in the front to create that illusion that we are going to actually save money using AI. I think that's a wrong approach to start. The approach should be how we are going to augment business capability for smarter decision making, for productivity enhancement using AI. Then we are approaching it the right way. Second piece around it is the whole deployment approach. So I think one of the things which is very important for organizations to realize, AI is not a piecemeal approach. And it is not about saying that, okay, I've implemented AI in recruitment and I'm done, for example, right? It's about understanding where downstream it impacts, where upstream it impacts. So let's say if I bring in AI into recruitment, is it impacting my candidate screening in a negative or positive way. We have all heard about the Amazon's experience with it, and where they ended up hiring all male employees because the AI was biased, right? Similarly, if we go downstream, have we actually touched AI to, let's say, sending automated mailers, scheduling, doing things which are more transactional, or have we really made it strategic to an extent, saying, okay, if tomorrow I have to send a mailer to an employee, the tone of the mail would actually be different based on the communication that I want to send. While it's easy with generative AI, I think it still requires that wholesome integration, understanding candidate personas, understanding the level at which they are, understanding what it takes to communicate to that person, and how and what is the best way to communicate to that person. Uh, I think AI can be a boon in all of those areas, just taking recruitment as an example. But if I just say that I want to implement it to solve my JD problems, I think I'm using it the wrong way. The third piece is around the whole change process. So we have to understand that whenever we implement any tech, forget AI, any tech, right? There is a change involved. The first change is on the tech itself. So whether we are actually replacing our current process, because we can't have two things. One is the duplication of process, a poor employee experience. So that's where the role of actually what I talked about earlier, stageability comes in, where we are always looking at what can we change in a process in a way that AI can impact it in a positive way.
Very valid, and thank you so much for sharing this, Amit. And I think a lot of people do agree with your points. I could see a lot of reactions coming in from the audience also, because yes, it definitely, brings in a lot of efficiency, but not every pitch can start with that, right? Because each technology that we're bringing in into the function, as much as it provides efficiency, it also, is specific to a particular function. So how are we, sort of integrating that, and how are we measuring our value, and if it is coming and if it's giving anything or not, is very, very important. And of course, you also talked about deployment and how it's important that we do that deployment in a very right way, so that the person who is also using it gets it right. So thank you so much, for highlighting that. Now, before we move on to the last question, I just have one last question for you, Amit. Arvind, I want to launch another poll for my audience, because Amit, in your response also, you talked about how, like we talked about AI in PMS. We now talked about AI in recruitment as well, candidate experience, all of that. I would like to understand from the audience, what do they think will have the biggest impact? In which function can we see AI's biggest impact? So I'm just going to launch the poll now. The question is, which HR area, in your view, will see the biggest impact from AI by 2026? We're already in 26. So, talent acquisition or hiring, learning and development, performance and talent mobility, or people analytics and strategic planning. So, we have some 230 of you right now present on the call. So, each one of you, please participate and let us know your views as well. And if any of you would like to, just add a comment also supporting your point, you could just add that in the chat or the Q&A panel, and we'll take it from there. Okay, I'll keep it for another 10 seconds. In the meantime, I just have one question left from my side, and then we'll jump on to the audience questions. So I can see some questions have already come in, but for the rest of you, if you have any questions, you can, still ask. Okay, I think we have a good response on the poll. Let me just end the poll now. And I'll share this with everybody. So 38% of you say people analytics and strategic planning, which is, I think, very, very relevant. And I think a lot of us would agree. 34% say talent acquisition and hiring would see biggest impact, which is followed by learning and development at 16% and 12% at performance and talent mobility. So thank you everybody for participating in this and sharing your views. This definitely helps. Then now let's hear from the experts what do they think. So to you Arvind, now if this is about like what we can expect in the next 3 to 4 years, or we can just say this year, right? Because as much we talked about how transformations and evolution is happening at such a I don't know 180 kilometer per hour speed. We can never know what's going to happen in the next 2027 January, right? So in this year only, if we can say so, what do you think would have the biggest impact? Which function of HR would have the biggest impact of AI? And if there was one strategic priorities, that HR leader must focus on, and at least in the upcoming years, what would that be?
I think while the context might differ from organization to organization, right? I think at least for all from an HR perspective, right? I think one of the biggest areas or the strategic areas where how can HR move from a support function to a truly enabling function is skill building or skill capability, right? And translating that from where picking up from Amit, right? Moving from a role based concept to a skill based concept, right? And that is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and just having building a set of skills for your employees or your organization can have a cascading impact across your entire process. Like how Amit said, it is not a piecemeal approach anymore, right? Today, when I hire a particular person for a particular skill, it can have an impact right on your hiring process, on your recruitment process, knowing that if I'm hiring for a particular skill, right, you exactly know what to pay for the person, right? If you're hiring 100 people for a particular skill, you know what is going to be the max pay or min pay, and what compa ratio is somebody sitting, being able to give you that kind of data based on a skill, right? We are not based on dependent on people anymore. Traditionally, the way it has always worked is Aravind is doing this role. He's gone on vacation, everything breaks. Only when he comes back, everything picks up, right? So we have moved away from that concept. We are not people dependent anymore. We can run the whole process based on skills, right? And imagine when you run your talent process with the skills on day one, when an employee walks in, if you can give data driven decisions based on me as an employee, I have 10 skills, I am competent in 8 skills, I have to do better on 2 skills on day one when I join a new company, and you're saying these are the learnings that you have to do based on the skills that you possess, right? And there are so many things that you can talk about. I can talk about talent mobility, right? I am somebody who's part of HR tech. Traditionally, the way movement has always worked, I am part of HR tech. Maybe I move to total rewards, maybe I move to talent acquisition or HRBP. But the whole skill gamut has completely changed because we are a skill driven organization now. Today, I lead HR tech for Biocon Biologics. Tomorrow, I could become a CTO. I could become a chief technology officer because it is skill driven, right? So, in my opinion, I can talk about this for hours, right? But in my opinion, the strategic priority is building skill capability as a HR, and how do we use that to drive data driven decisions, and how can we grab that seat at the table that Amit said, right? How can we help CXOs and CFOs and all of those people to make decisions, and how can we go back and question decisions when somebody take a decision saying, hey, you are wrong, the data says otherwise, right? So I think the skill capability building will definitely take us there.
Thank you so much for that, Arvind. Deeply resonates with all of us, and I think yes, skill-based, capability building is something that all of us, regardless of which function that we belong to, should be focusing on. I personally think so as well, and data always speaks louder, as you said, right? So that definitely helps. To you, Amit, also, what do you think should be the top priority,
I,
and what is it that you can
I
see?
was honestly surprised with the poll result, and I'll tell you why. So I could see that there's a bias towards quick wins. The real gain for HR is in the performance and talent mobility. And one of the reasons is because the whole skill, and Arvind talked about it, right? The whole skill to experience linkage is so complex. So you can take any of the technical roles and you will understand what I'm saying. It's very difficult to actually pinpoint what could be the next move. And now we are also talking about an era where skills will actually decay and dissolve. So when skills will decay and dissolve, how do skills evolve from there? or how do people take the next capability is an area where AI can definitely support a lot. Compared to what we are looking at today, right? Today we see somebody growing in as a Python developer and he continues growing in that ladder. I think that concept, the whole career philosophy that we operate with, is entirely going to change. Uh, Another interesting thing which I can see, and I'm not like a soothsayer here, but I'm just trying to see from a future perspective. We'll also have multiple employments, parallel employments happening at the same time, because ultimately we'll become like a portfolio of skills. And with that portfolio, whatever work I get, it'll be for a limited time, for a defined period of time, and then I probably get again redeployed into another organization, another role. And those kind of possibilities, which we can't even think of today, would become reality of tomorrow. So for HR to really make an impact, it's about understanding how talent mobility and performance can be made more enhanced more with AI. So that's the way I would think about it.
No, definitely. Thank you so much for that, Amit. Gives a lot of perspective to this discussion today, and thank you so much for sharing your views on this. And I think honestly, I also felt when I saw the PMS bit having a less vote. I remembered what Aravind said, right, about how when we talk about AI in PMS, we think, okay, how will a technology sort of tell what I am capable of, right? Because that's how we see it. And I think there's a lot of bias which is involved, and there's a lot of work that HR professionals, HR leaders can do in that area, and have those constant communication and exchange those ideas with the employees at large as well. That okay, this is how it is going to help, so that nobody is sort of kept in the dark or sort of left confused as how this will help. So I think yeah, that is there. And thank you so much to both of you. I think this was a wonderful, wonderful conversation today. I personally enjoyed it a lot, and I think it's just you talked about portfolio of skills, and that just sort of stuck in my mind, right? That how we are going to be actually portfolio of skills. I think previously there would be some roles that would say, oh, I have a portfolio. Not everybody says that I have a portfolio. We have a resume, sure, but like there are specific roles that say we have a portfolio. Now we will become portfolio of skills is a great way to look at it. And I think there's a lot of exciting stuff that is coming, and we just have to evolve with it. I think we just circle back to our initial discussion. So thank you so much for that to both of you. Wonderful conversation today. And I can see a lot of reactions also coming in from the audience. So I take it that we were able to provide a good experience to them without too much AI, in setting this up. But of course, a lot of conversation on AI today. Now, let me just quickly, because we have some time left, I'll just jump on to the audience questions right now and see which one we can take. So there's one question, and I think we did speak about it in length, but if either of you would like to take this up, how can we use artificial intelligence in performance management?
I think it's a
Arvind? Yeah.
great topic, and I think it's an ocean in itself, right? And I think the enterprise performance management is not a new topic anymore, right? And we have reached at a point where, like I said, right, performance management has not become subjective anymore, and we have reached a point where you can completely automate the entire process, but at the same time still retain the sanctity, right? So it can be a guiding force to complete the entire process, and at the same time give data driven decisions in terms of performance management. And now we have reached a stage where you can even take large scale decisions on your long term incentives and your equity management, and let's say you track your performance or your goals for your top 2% 3% leadership objectively with numbers, and based on exactly the numbers that they achieve, right? And imagine you can track that in a real time on a daily basis. I am supposed to manufacture 50 units, and I track the amount of units that I manufactured in a different unit. And I'm slightly getting into technical details, but when you have integration, and imagine on every day when you walk in and you give a ticking number like that says, right, in 1 year I'm supposed to get to X, and in half year I have achieved 0.5, and I have to get there, right? So the whole process has become completely objective, and employees don't have to question anymore. The biggest point in performance management is when somebody goes back and question, why do I fall into bucket one, or why do I fall into bucket two, or that's the traditional question that always comes, right? But now you have data backed decisions saying that these are the reasons by which we've taken this decision. But having said that, while A is great in performance management, what we don't acknowledge is that it can't understand behavioral aspects, right? Somebody could achieve 150% in their numbers, right? But if they're extremely a poor manager, they don't understand how to handle people, then that person has royally failed, right? So yes, AI can be a guiding force, but I think we should definitely learn to take it with a pinch of salt and have a human being take the final decision there.
And if I could just add to what Aravind beautifully mentioned, right? So one of the things where I think AI can be a big help, and we have all seen that, right? We have busy managers who just say agree to every performance pointers or KRAs, and then when you ask for summary output, you would see this is a great person, and that's the kind of comments. I'm just giving an example. But what I'm trying to highlight here is the ability for AI to help manager craft an objective feedback. And that's very important from two perspectives. One is from a compliance perspective. Globally, uh, I mean, I've had so many scenarios where the person said that this is a great person, and then he was put on PIP, and we had a legal challenge there. And now I think AI can support those decisions better. So getting that bit from a compliance perspective, and also enabling better nudging, as we talked about, enabling a better predictability, as Arvind mentioned, is all the benefits that we can foresee in the current scenario. Of course, as we go along, more and more use cases would emerge.
This definitely helps. Thank you so much, Amit and Aravind, both of you. And I think this was the same question from Priyanka Bharti as well. So this is answered. Moving on to the next question. Again, we have touched upon this, but if you could, just add on, or we would like to conclude this. This is from Joshua. How should HR teams upskill themselves to effectively manage AI tools?
So I'll probably go first, Arvind, if you're okay. Okay, great. So I think there are three elements to it. One is learning what AI is all about. Uh, and I'm not talking about the technical details yet, but there has to be some element of understanding of how prompt engineering works, understanding AI agents. But the more important part is also learning agentic AI, because that's the future. Once agentic AI takes over, we'll be, of course, in a very, very different world. And if we were to have this same conversation, then Raki, I think me and Arvind would be responding very differently, right? So I think so. AI literacy is one. Understanding how to be better product managers. Earlier, it was about project management. HR was all about project management. I'm not saying that that skill becomes redundant. We still need to manage projects, but the product manager mindset is very, very important, according to me, in the space. And third, of course, leading organizational change, which will continue to be as important as ever.
Thank you so much for this, Amit. Aravind, would you like to add to this?
Yes, I think the biggest point is the having the readiness to change, right? And we should accept the fact that change is the only constant, and we have to start embracing that, right? And some amount of basic AI literacy is going to definitely help, right? And you don't have to think about learning neural networks or large language models, or how chat gpt or trained transformers work. We're talking basic, what is machine learning, what is supervised learning, what is unsupervised learning, right? So, and AI is not a new concept. It has been in existence for maybe 40, 50 years in different forms, right? So one, understanding what are the capabilities of AI, what how can I use AI to make decisions, or how can I augment my business, and just having the willingness to change and saying that we'll have to learn to coexist with AI, right? So I think these are important factors that I see how do we handle AI.
Definitely. Thank you so much for this, Arvind, to both of you for this response. I'll quickly move on to the next one, which is from Dattatreya. The question is very specific. How can we use AI in background verification? So if you'd like to add on to this one.
So I think it's a very contentious area. Organizations have been trying to use blockchain plus AI, but there is a lot of issues around data and data privacy, which are kind of holding it back. So I know of organizations which started with blockchain way back in 2015, and we were in early discussions about how they can actually implement in my current organization. And when we realized the approach, it kind of impedes on a lot of things. Now, there are benefits, but for that, we'll have to become like a marketplace to enable data sharing across organizations, which unfortunately doesn't happen today, right? And till then, I think AI can only actually evaluate based on certain criteria or certain responses and give a feedback. Now, one way, intuitively, I'm just thinking one way could be where you, whatever referrals you are taking, you take them on a video. So usually referrals are given in a written format. If you take them over video and let AI analyze those responses for biasness or correctness, maybe that could be one way. But this is where AI can really help. Of course, there's a larger footprint, which of course today AI cannot unfortunately impact because of the GDPR and other laws that exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on. And I think the classic Pareto rule applies here, right? The 20% of what you do will have an impact on 80% of your entire process, right? Bringing in AI in background verification is maybe possible, but is that worth putting in that effort in terms of going back to the same example of Amazon that he mentioned, right? Rejecting all female candidates and picking up only male candidates. Imagine if you don't have a trained AI and that's going to reject every background verification of your any candidate, the whole process is going to break, right? So again, going back to the same point of efficiency, let's not think AI just to bring in how do I improve efficiency, right? If I bring in AI, is it going to augment my business better, or probably am I better off running the process the way I am running now, right? I think that's the approach we need to take instead of just blindly saying, just randomly pick up a process and say, how can I use AI to improve the process, right? I think that's the way I see it.
Correct. And
Definitely.
let's not think process again. We had that discussion throughout, right? AI is not so much about process, it's about the work stream. What
Right.
happens upstream, what happens downstream? Am I breaking something? Am I adding more burden to the system by just introducing AI? That's the approach that we need to use. And that's where product approach comes in. And if we are able to think like a product manager, we'll realize that the gains, as Arvind rightly pointed out, are minimal compared to the impact that we want to bring.
Deeply resonates with, I think, a lot of us. It shouldn't be that, because everybody is doing it, we have to do it, or this is in the trend that we have to do it. It's also important to realize and, understand if this is what we read right now as, an organization, if this is one of the objectives that will help us, achieve something, right? So that's very important to, take that call. So thanks to both of you. I'll move on to the next question. This is from Nidhi S. The question is, how can we retain people in this AI-driven world?
Retrain or retain?
Retain people.
Retain. Okay. So I don't understand the organizational context, but I'll try take a stab at it, and maybe Arvind, you can add. So I'm assuming that she's talking about critical roles and skills which are important for the organization. I'm assuming that we are not talking about generic roles. Now, if that's the case, I think nothing changes because beyond AI, the world remains the same. It's about understanding how that person can be shown that path or the future in a more transparent and open way in terms of how the role will evolve, right? I think so. We may not have so many HR ops manager, but we'll have more HR experience manager or experienced business partners. So we have to really look at how the roles are evolving and give that picture. A lot of work needs to happen on the entire org design place itself, because org design is one place where we have that opportunity to say, this is how AI is integrating in various streams, and this is how work is going to evolve. And that's going to be a constant exercise, like what we have today as workforce planning. The org design and capability architecting would become that, right? So one is the visibility of the growth. Second, of course, all the traditional levers which you would use to ring fence critical talent, to manage their comp and ben in the right way, and doing everything that is right for their growth, for their career, will still continue to be important. The only shift I see is enabling that visibility into how you can grow, and not using a traditional career path approach or a career planning approach, but using a more dynamic approach, which is based on skills.
Understood. Thank you so
The
much
whole
for that, Amit.
employee engagement or retention is a very fascinating topic, right? And in fact, when I get into this topic, I use this abbreviation or acronym that really matters. I call it CPLR or CPRL, right? What really matters to an employee in an organization, right? C, career; P, performance; L, learning; or rewards, right? So if any one of this fail, if you typically ask why does an employee leave an organization, right, it will mostly fall under these four buckets, right? And how can I use AI to tell somebody what could be a future career path? How can I use AI to tell somebody what are the future skills that he needs to possess? And how can I give nudges on a daily basis for somebody's performance on how do they do? How do I use rewards? How do I use AI to understand which comp ratio is somebody sitting? Where is he in the market? What is his range penetration? Do I pay for performance or do I pay for potential? So there is so much capability that AI can do, right? And now with tools like Infido, coming in, where sentiment analysis have started kicking, and you have moodometers, employees reacting on a daily basis on how do they feel. And gone are the days where you need to have one-on-one connects, block calendars with employees and talk to them. Now at the tip of the hand, the tool walks in and tools tell you that out of 100 people, I have 10 people who are probably not feeling well and they're upset with something, and you have to do this, right? So we have gone up to that level. But summarizing all of this, I think instead of just putting all your eggs in one basket, for every organization, you need to understand what really matters, right? You'll have to talk about moments that matter. I'm somebody who's been traditionally with the entire set of IT for more than 10, 12 years, right? When I joined Biocon Biologics, a typical manufacturing company, it was a huge cultural shift. It was a cultural shock for me, right? So you can't just say that, I have a formula, I have to directly go and apply. That's not how it works. Context matters, the culture matters, what is important for the organization. You decide that, and then you figure out how do I use AI to retain your employees, right? So that's how I see that.
Mm, definitely. Thank you so much for that, Arvind. This discussion is great. I'm personally enjoying it a lot, but considering the time that we have already surpassed it. I'll just take last two questions and we'll wrap the session. And for the audience, if there are any more questions, you can reach out to us directly. I'll be sharing some email IDs with you where you can reach out to us and we'll have those discussions offline. But in the meantime, just these last two questions. One is from Arparna Pradeep. The question is how to get AI for statutory compliance. So if either of you could, take a shot at it.
It's a very a sensitive topic, and I'm just trying to again going back to the same topic of uh, there is only a limit that AI can do, right? And statutory compliance is a very vast area. Let's take the example of the change in labor codes that is coming in, right? It's a huge statutory complaint, but how can you bring in AI into that? It's a topic that you need to debate, right? And if you have to redesign the entire compensation station structure and change that for a particular organization, some amount of machine learning might be involved, some amount of in terms of building rules and logic and all of that will be there. But is it worth bringing in AI in statutory compliance is the question, right? And do we understand, does AI understand that, right? In a something like GDPR in terms of handling PA data, I would rather depend on a works council in Germany rather than reaching out to a AI bot and say how do I handle this particular statutory complaints? And let's understand the amount of penalty that you're going to pay when you miss out on a statutory complaints is just huge. So do you want to invest your bucket in AI for statutory complaints? Maybe not. My personal feeling is not. I would rather depend on somebody who's a subject matter expert on at least on statutory complaints. That's just my personal view.
Sure, sure. Amit, would you like to add to this?
No, I would agree with Aravind. And the point which I would like to add here is, see, AI is in fact, how is AI going to be compliant is an important angle which we need to think, right? So, for example, I and Arvind talked about it briefly, but I'll touch upon it in a context which you can understand. So, there was an organization which used its entire compensation data and uploaded it on a public GPT. Okay, and the competition used that data to pull out almost 30% of their employees. And while this is just an example, right? This shows the challenge that we have on compliance front while using AI. So I'm just presenting a different picture. On the question, if it is about how to use AI for compliance, my answer would be same as before. Let's not think processes. Let's think product, and let's think upstream and downstream, and what is it that we really want to impact.
Thank you so much, Amit, for that. I'll just take one last question. This is from Pallavi. The question is, I think we discussed this in detail, but if you could just maybe this could be like a conclusion to the discussion today. How can we use AI in a strategic planning?
Yeah, so I think we started with this when we said one of the things for AI is to move away from, or rather, one of the benefits of AI is to move away from strategic planning to what I call as capability architecting. Because when we talked about planning was with a long-term perspective, even with a 6 months window or a 1 year window. And we were talking about roles and people, right? Today, we are not really in that space. I think whatever the organization is, wherever you are in terms of experimenting with AI, you need to think about how AI will impact the work, if not today, then tomorrow. And how do you need to really re-architect the work along those lines? And that's where the whole aspect of moving away from strategic planning to a capability architecting is important in my view.
Thank you, Amit, on that.
I think just to summarize that, right, while again, this will be very context specific and it all depends on what does your organization really want to achieve, right? And your implementation of AI or what you want to achieve has to augment the business. We keep saying the same point again and again, right? Instead of just focusing on efficiency, how can I give ROI? Or it is not about speed, cost, quality anymore, right? We have crossed that stage. Now it is about capability building and how can I help my CFOs and CEOs do better, and how can I really be a strategic partner? And I think the focus is shifting towards there. And strategic planning is probably a very, very small segment of it, and we have to start thinking more about capability buildings. That's when we truly become a strategic partner and take that seat at the table with the CEO.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Aravind, for that. And to you, Amit, as well. Thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation today. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I didn't want this to end at all, but time's up, and I hope we catch up very soon and discuss more on these exciting technologies, trends, and at the center of it, people always, at workplaces. And thank you so much to our audience as well for joining us. Lots of reactions that we can see from the audience. I take it that this was a great session. So thanks to both of you for your brilliant insights and how the role of HR has completely evolved. And there's still a lot more that we can do, that we'll keep doing as passionate individuals, but at the same time keeping that AI human tech intervention at the center of it. So thank you so much once again. I think we covered most of the questions, but if there are any more questions for the audience, you can write to me on this email ID that you can see on the screen, which is rakhigotham@greytip.com. And we will get back to you for the recording as well. This will be shared with all of you by next week, and this will also be available on greytHR's official YouTube channel, so you can always go there, watch it. For all of you who wants to connect with Amit and Aravind personally, we will be sharing their credentials with you all, so you can reach out to them and continue this discussion offline as well. I think it's great when
There was a point.
yes.
Sorry, Aki, there was a point in one of the Q&A asking for a LinkedIn, so I put mine. If you
Sure,
want,
sure.
you can
We'll
also share
let
it.
me. I will ask my team to also put both of your email IDs here in the chat for everybody,
Sure.
so they can connect with you personally on LinkedIn as well. So once again, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. This was truly my pleasure to host both of you today.
Thank you so much, Raki, and thanks to everyone. Thank you, Amit.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Arvind, for chipping in. It was great talking to you and interacting here. Raki, thank you for the very, very thoughtful questions, and thank you thank you to the audience as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And we are going to be back with another very interesting, topic of discussion very soon. The budget is also coming in. So for our audience, we will be having a very dedicated special session on budget. And if there's any changes which we can expect, in terms of, employee and what organizations have to do in terms of the new budget changes that we can expect, we'll have a detailed discussion on that in the first week of February itself. So we'll be sharing the notification with all of you for that. And we'll keep on discussing technologies, people, and culture in the upcoming sessions too. Once again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Until next time, have a great evening.